The rain hammered against the windows of the Grand Palace as Captain Marcus Steele stood at attention in the throne room. His black uniform was perfectly pressed, his silver badges gleaming under the crystal chandeliers. He had served the royal family for 15 years, and never once had he questioned an order. Today would be different. King Edward sat on his throne, his weathered face showing worry lines that hadn't been there a month ago. The crown seemed heavier on his gray head than usual. Queen Isabella paced behind him, her silk dress rustling with each anxious step. The royal couple had been married for 30 years, but Marcus had never seen them look so troubled. Captain Steele, the king's voice echoed through the vast room. What I'm about to tell you must never leave this room. Do you understand? Marcus nodded firmly. Of course, your majesty. You have my complete loyalty. The queen stopped pacing and turned to face the captain. Her eyes were red from crying, though she tried to hide it behind her royal composure. It's about Prince Alexander, she whispered. Prince Alexander was the king's younger brother, beloved by the people for his charity work and kind nature. He lived in a luxury apartment in the city center, preferring the simple life over palace living. Marcus had always respected the prince for his down-to-earth personality. King Edward cleared his throat. We've received some disturbing information about my brother. Anonymous letters, photographs, and witness statements. They paint a very different picture of Alexander than what the public knows. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. In his years of service, he had learned that royal scandals could destroy kingdoms. The people trusted their royalty to be moral and honest. If that trust was broken, revolution could follow. What kind of information, your majesty? Marcus asked carefully. The queen pulled a folder from behind the throne and handed it to the captain. See for yourself. But prepare yourself, Marcus. What you're about to see will shock you. Marcus opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were photographs of Prince Alexander entering and leaving various buildings around the city. At first glance, they seemed innocent enough. But as Marcus looked closer, he noticed the buildings were all in the poorest part of the city. Strange for a prince to visit such places regularly. There were also bank records showing large sums of money being moved from royal accounts to unknown recipients. The amounts were staggering, enough to feed a small country for months. More troubling were the timestamps. The transfers happened every week, always at night, always in cash. This doesn't make sense, Marcus muttered, studying the papers. Prince Alexander is known for his charity work. Maybe he's just helping the poor. King Edward shook his head sadly. That's what we thought at first. But look at the next page. Marcus turned the page and found witness statements from people in the poor districts. Their stories were all similar and deeply disturbing. They spoke of strange midnight gatherings, people going into buildings and never coming out, and the prince being at the center of it all. One witness, a street cleaner named Tom, wrote, I see the prince every Thursday night. He comes with big cars and men in dark clothes. They take people inside the old warehouse on Elm Street. I hear screaming sometimes. When morning comes, the people who went in are gone. The prince always leaves with briefcases full of money. Another witness, a homeless woman named Sarah, described seeing Prince Alexander arguing with a man outside a rundown apartment building. The prince was angry, she wrote. He said something about the operation and keeping quiet. Then his men grabbed the other man and dragged him into a van. I never saw that man again. Marcus felt sick reading the statements. If they were true, Prince Alexander was involved in something terrible. But he couldn't believe it. The prince had always been kind to the palace staff, generous with his time and money for good causes. Are we sure these are real? Marcus asked. Someone could have made up these stories to hurt the royal family. Queen Isabella sat down heavily on a nearby chair. We thought the same thing. That's why we hired private investigators to follow Alexander for 3 weeks. They confirmed everything. The king pulled out another folder, this one even thicker. The investigators took these photos and recorded these conversations. The evidence is overwhelming. Marcus, my brother, is not the man we thought he was. Marcus opened the second folder, and his heart sank. The photographs were clear and damning. Prince Alexander was shown meeting with known criminals, handling briefcases full of cash, and entering buildings that the investigators had identified as fronts for illegal activities. There were audio recordings, too. Marcus listened to one where the prince's voice was unmistakable. The next shipment arrives Tuesday. Make sure our buyers are ready. And remember, anyone who talks disappears permanently. What kind of operation is he running? Marcus asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. The king stood up from his throne and walked to the window. Outside, the city sparkled with lights from millions of homes where families were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their beloved prince was a criminal. Human trafficking, the king said quietly. Alexander has been kidnapping poor people from the streets and selling them to wealthy buyers overseas. The warehouse on Elm Street is where he keeps them before shipment. Our investigators estimate he's sold over 300 people in the past 2 years. Marcus dropped the folder, papers scattering across the marble floor. 300 people, men, women, maybe even children, stolen from their lives and sold like cattle. The thought made him want to vomit. That's not all, Queen Isabella added, her voice breaking. The money he's making isn't just for profit. Our accountants found evidence that Alexander is planning to overthrow Edward. He's been funding a private army and buying weapons. He wants the throne for himself. The room fell silent, except for the rain still pounding against the windows. Marcus had served his family his entire adult life. He had sworn an oath to protect them from all enemies, foreign and domestic. He never imagined that one of the greatest threats would come from within the royal family itself. "What do you want me to do, Your Majesty?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer would change his life forever. King Edward turned away from the window, his face hard with determination. Alexander is hosting a gathering tonight at his apartment. According to our sources, he's meeting with his top lieutenants to plan the next phase of his operation. You will take a squad of our most trusted guards and arrest him. But he's your brother, Marcus said softly. He stopped being my brother the moment he started destroying innocent lives, the king replied firmly. The law applies to everyone, even royalty. Maybe especially royalty. Queen Isabella stood up and approached Marcus. You must be very careful, Captain. Alexander has his own security team, and they're armed and dangerous. He's also incredibly smart. If he suspects anything, he might destroy evidence or escape. We only have one chance to get this right. Marcus gathered the scattered papers and put them back in the folders. His mind was racing with plans and preparations. A raid on a royal family member was unprecedented. If word got out before they acted, it could cause panic in the kingdom. How many men should I take? Marcus asked. 20 of our best, the king answered. But choose carefully. Alexander has spies everywhere, maybe even among our own guards. Only select men you would trust with your own life. Marcus nodded and saluted. I'll need 2 hours to prepare the team and plan our approach. You have 1 hour, Queen Isabella said urgently. Our intelligence suggests the meeting starts at midnight. If we wait too long, Alexander might conclude his business and disappear. We know he has escape routes prepared. As Marcus turned to leave, the king called out to him. Captain, there's something else you should know. When you search Alexander's apartment, you're likely to find evidence of other crimes. Things that might be even worse than what we've already discovered. Be prepared for anything. Marcus paused at the door. What do you mean, Your Majesty? The king and queen exchanged a look that chilled Marcus to the bone. Our investigators believe the human trafficking is just one part of Alexander's criminal empire. There are indications he's involved in drug smuggling, money laundering, and possibly murder. His apartment is likely to be full of evidence. How long has this been going on? Marcus asked. We think it started about 5 years ago, shortly after Alexander began his charity work, Queen Isabella replied. He used his royal status to gain access to vulnerable communities. People trusted him because he was a prince. He betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. The royal family was supposed to protect and serve their people, not prey upon them. Prince Alexander had violated everything the monarchy stood for. There's one more thing, the king said as Marcus reached for the door handle. If Alexander resists arrest, if he threatens you or your men, you have permission to use whatever force is necessary. I won't have good men die protecting a criminal, even if that criminal is my brother. The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a heavy cloak. In 1 hour, he would lead his men into battle against a prince of the realm. Everything he had trained for, everything he believed in, would be tested in the next few hours. I understand, Your Majesty. We'll bring him in. As Marcus left the throne room, his boots echoing in the empty corridors, he began mentally preparing for the most important mission of his career. He would need to choose his team carefully, plan their approach to minimize casualties, and prepare for the possibility that Prince Alexander would not go quietly. The rain continued to fall as Marcus made his way to the guard quarters. In less than an hour, 20 loyal soldiers would follow him into the night to arrest the prince. By morning, the kingdom would either be safer or torn apart by scandal. Marcus pulled out his phone and began making calls to his most trusted sergeants. "Code Black," he said to each one. "Briefing room in 30 minutes. Full combat gear. This is not a drill." As he walked through the palace halls, Marcus thought about the hundreds of innocent people who had suffered because of Prince Alexander's crimes. Tonight, justice would finally come for them. Tonight, the royal guard would storm a royal apartment and uncover the truth. The discovery inside would shock the kingdom and change the monarchy forever. But first, Marcus had to make sure his men were ready for whatever they might find behind Prince Alexander's door. Captain Marcus Steele stood before 20 of the kingdom's finest soldiers in the secure briefing room deep beneath the palace. The men he had chosen were veterans of countless operations, each one tested in battle and proven loyal beyond question. They sat in perfect silence, their faces serious as they waited for orders. Sergeant David Chun, Marcus's second-in-command for 8 years, raised his hand. "Sir, is this about the rumors circulating in the city? People are talking about strange disappearances." Marcus had expected this question. His men were smart and observant. They had probably noticed the increased security around the palace and the king's worried demeanor over the past few weeks. "What I'm about to tell you will shock you," Marcus began, his voice steady and authoritative. "Tonight, we arrest Prince Alexander on charges of human trafficking, conspiracy to commit treason, and multiple counts of murder." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Corporal James Morrison, a young soldier who had grown up admiring the prince's charity work, stood up abruptly. "Sir, there must be some mistake. Prince Alexander is beloved by the people. He's helped thousands of families." Marcus had anticipated this reaction. The prince's public image was so positive that even hearing evidence against him seemed impossible. "Sit down, Corporal. I know this is difficult to believe, but the evidence is overwhelming." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus presented the same folders that the king had shown him. He watched as his men's faces changed from disbelief to horror to anger. These soldiers had dedicated their lives to protecting innocent people. Learning that a member of the royal family was destroying lives filled them with rage. Sergeant Chin studied the photographs carefully. "Sir, if this is true, how many people are we talking about saving? Are there victims being held right now?" "Our intelligence suggests there may be up to 50 people currently imprisoned in the warehouse on Elm Street," Marcus replied. "But tonight's priority is arresting Prince Alexander and securing evidence from his apartment. Rescue operations will follow once we have him in custody." Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the team's explosives expert, leaned forward. "What kind of resistance should we expect? If the prince is planning treason, he probably has serious security." Marcus pulled up building schematics on the room's large screen. Prince Alexander's apartment occupied the entire top floor of a luxury building in the city's most exclusive district. The building had excellent security, multiple escape routes, and a clear view of all approaches. "According to our surveillance, the prince has at least 12 armed guards in the building tonight," Marcus explained. "They're not palace guards. They're mercenaries with military training. They've been hired specifically to protect Alexander's criminal operations." Corporal Morrison studied the building layout. "Sir, that's a fortress. How do we get inside without alerting them?" Marcus pointed to different areas of the schematic. "We'll divide into 3 teams. Team Alpha will take the main entrance and draw their attention. Team Bravo will enter through the service elevator in the parking garage. Team Charlie will rappel down from the roof and enter through the balcony." "What about civilians in the building?" asked Sergeant Thompson, a 30-year veteran known for his careful planning. "The building has been evacuated," Marcus replied. "We've told the residents there's a gas leak, and they need to stay away until morning. Only Prince Alexander's people remain inside." Lieutenant Kim raised another concern. "Sir, if we're arresting a member of the royal family, shouldn't we involve the city police? This could cause major political problems." Marcus had wrestled with this question himself. Involving outside agencies risked leaks that could warn Prince Alexander. But conducting the operation solely with palace guards raised questions about the monarchy policing itself. "The king has personally authorized this operation," Marcus explained. "We have full legal authority. The city police will be informed after the arrest is complete. For now, secrecy is essential." The soldiers spent the next 30 minutes reviewing detailed plans for each phase of the operation. They studied the building's security systems, identified potential ambush points, and rehearsed their movements. Every man knew his role and understood the stakes. As the briefing concluded, Sergeant Shin pulled Marcus aside. "Sir, there's something you should know. Corporal Morrison's sister works as a maid in Prince Alexander's building. She's mentioned seeing strange things lately, people coming and going at odd hours, sounds of crying from the prince's apartment." This information both worried and relieved Marcus. It provided additional confirmation of the prince's crimes, but it also meant civilian witnesses might be in danger. "Where's Morrison's sister now?" "She called in sick today and went to stay with relatives in the countryside," Chin replied. Morrison convinced her to leave after he heard rumors about tonight's operation. Marcus felt grateful for his soldiers' quick thinking. Protecting innocent people was their primary duty, even when it complicated their mission. "Good work. Make sure Morrison knows his family is safe." The teams gathered their equipment and moved toward the palace motor pool. Each soldier carried advanced night vision goggles, body armor rated for high-powered rifles, and non-lethal weapons designed to subdue suspects without causing permanent harm. Their orders were to take Prince Alexander alive, if possible. As they loaded into unmarked black vehicles, Marcus received a secure radio message from the palace. "Captain Steele, this is Control. We've received word that the prince's meeting has begun. You have a green light for immediate departure." "Copy that, Control. Teams are moving out now." The convoy of 3 vehicles moved silently through the empty city streets. It was nearly midnight, and most citizens were asleep in their homes. Police had been quietly redirected away from the target area without being told why. The operation had to remain secret until it was complete. Marcus rode in the lead vehicle with Team Alpha, watching the city pass by through bulletproof windows. He thought about the hundreds of victims whose lives had been destroyed by Prince Alexander's crimes. Tonight would finally bring them justice, but it would also shatter the royal family's reputation. "Sir," radioed Lieutenant Kim from Team Charlie's vehicle, "we've spotted the building. All lights are on in the prince's apartment, and we can see figures moving around inside." Marcus keyed his radio. "All teams, this is Captain Steele. Remember, we want Prince Alexander alive. He has information we need about his entire operation. Use minimum force necessary." The vehicles stopped 2 blocks from the target building, and the teams moved to their assigned positions. Team Alpha approached the main entrance through the building's circular driveway. Team Bravo descended into the underground parking garage through a maintenance access. Team Charlie climbed to the roof of an adjacent building and prepared their rappelling equipment. Marcus watched through binoculars as Prince Alexander's security guards patrolled the building's perimeter. They were professional and alert, but they weren't expecting an attack from the Royal Guard. Their attention was focused on potential threats from rival criminal organizations, not from the monarchy itself. Teams Bravo and Charlie report status. Marcus whispered into his radio. "Bravo in position. We've disabled the garage security cameras and have eyes on the service elevator." "Charlie ready. We can see into the prince's apartment through the balcony windows." Counting at least 8 people in the main room, including the target, Marcus felt his pulse quicken. After months of investigation and planning, they were moments away from confronting Prince Alexander. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "All teams stand by," Marcus commanded. "We move on my signal in 3, 2, go." Team Alpha stormed through the building's main entrance, using electronic devices to bypass the security locks. The lobby guard were caught completely off guard and subdued before they could sound an alarm. Marcus led his men toward the elevators, knowing that the real fight would begin once they reached the prince's floor. Meanwhile, Team Bravo moved through the parking garage like shadows. They had studied the building's layout for hours and knew exactly where to go. The service elevator carried them silently toward their target, while Team Charlie rappelled down the building's exterior wall. "Alpha Team, we're in the elevator shaft," reported Sergeant Chen. 30 seconds to target floor." "Charlie Team rappelling now," added Lieutenant Kim. "We can see the prince through the windows. He's showing documents to several men in expensive suits." Marcus felt adrenaline surge through his system as the elevator climbed toward Prince Alexander's apartment. In a few seconds, they would confront one of the most shocking criminal conspiracies in the kingdom's history. The evidence they found tonight would either save the monarchy or destroy it forever. Remember, Marcus radioed to all teams. We need those documents intact. Whatever the prince is showing his associates could contain evidence about other victims and co-conspirators. The elevator reached the target floor, and the doors opened silently. Marcus could hear voices coming from the apartment's main room. Prince Alexander was in the middle of an important conversation with his criminal associates. This was their chance to catch him with all the evidence. Teams Bravo and Charlie, confirm ready status, Marcus whispered. Bravo ready. We're outside the apartment's rear entrance. Charlie ready. Balcony entry point secured. Marcus took a deep breath and prepared to give the final order. Once they burst through those doors, there would be no turning back. The kingdom's future hung in the balance. All teams, breach. The three teams struck simultaneously with military precision. Flashbang grenades exploded through the apartment, filling the luxurious rooms with blinding light and deafening noise. Captain Marcus Steele burst through the front door with Team Alpha, just as Lieutenant Kim's team, Charlie, crashed through the balcony windows, and Sergeant Chen's team, Bravo, stormed in from the rear. Prince Alexander stood frozen in the center of his opulent living room, still holding a stack of photographs that he had been showing to 5 well-dressed men around a marble conference table. His face went pale as he recognized the Royal Guard uniforms, but Marcus noticed something unexpected in the prince's eyes, not surprise or fear, but resignation, as if he had been expecting this moment. Nobody move, Marcus shouted, his rifle trained on the prince. Royal Guard, you are all under arrest. The prince's security team reacted quickly, drawing weapons and taking cover behind expensive furniture. Gunfire erupted as Marcus's men engaged the mercenaries in a fierce battle across the apartment. Crystal vases shattered, oil paintings fell from walls, and the marble floor cracked under the weight of overturned furniture. Sergeant Shun took cover behind the kitchen island and radioed Marcus. Sir, we've got movement in the back rooms. Sounds like they're destroying evidence. Team Charlie, secure those back rooms now. Marcus ordered while ducking behind a marble pillar as bullets chipped away at the stone around him. Prince Alexander dropped to his hands and knees, crawling toward a hidden panel in the wall while his men fought desperately to protect him. Marcus saw the prince's movement and realized he was trying to reach an escape route. Stop right there, Your Highness, Marcus called out, but Prince Alexander continued crawling toward the wall panel. Lieutenant Kim appeared from behind an overturned sofa, her night vision goggles giving her a clear view of the prince's movements. She fired a non-lethal dart that struck Prince Alexander in the shoulder, causing him to collapse just inches from the wall panel. The gunfight continued for another 3 minutes before Marcus's superior training and coordination overwhelmed the mercenaries. When the smoke cleared, 4 of the prince's men lay unconscious from stun weapons. 2 had been wounded and were receiving medical attention, and the remaining 6 had surrendered. The 5 well-dressed men who had been meeting with Prince Alexander cowered behind the overturned conference table. Marcus approached them cautiously, noting their expensive suits and foreign accents. Identify yourselves, Marcus commanded, keeping his weapon ready. A tall man with a Russian accent spoke first. I am Viktor Petrov, cultural attaché from the Russian embassy. This is a diplomatic meeting about art exhibitions. Marcus almost laughed at the obvious lie. The documents scattered around the room clearly showed shipping manifests, financial records, and what appeared to be human inventory lists. This was no cultural meeting. Sergeant Shun, secure all documents and electronic devices, Marcus ordered. Lieutenant Kim, check Prince Alexander's condition. As his team began collecting evidence, Marcus was amazed by the sheer volume of criminal documentation in the apartment. The prince had been incredibly sloppy, keeping detailed records of every transaction, every victim, and every co-conspirator. Lieutenant Kim knelt beside the unconscious prince and checked his vital signs. He's stable, sir. The dart will keep him sedated for about an hour. But, Captain, you need to see this. Kim handed Marcus a leather portfolio that had fallen from Prince Alexander's hands during the arrest. Inside were photographs that made Marcus's stomach turn. They showed dozens of people locked in cages, their faces gaunt and desperate. Each photograph had a price tag attached, human beings being sold like livestock. Dear God, Marcus whispered, flipping through more photos. These people, some of them look like children. There's more, sir, Kim said grimly. She led Marcus to a computer desk where multiple laptops were still running. The screens showed live video feeds from what appeared to be warehouses and shipping containers around the world. Marcus stared at the screens in horror. In one feed, he could see people huddled together in a dark, crowded space. Another showed men loading human cargo onto trucks. A third displayed a ledger with names, ages, and destinations for hundreds of victims. "This is bigger than we thought," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. "This isn't just local human trafficking. Prince Alexander is running an international network." Sergeant Chun approached with an armful of documents. "Sir, you're not going to believe what else we found. There are bank records showing payments to government officials, judges, and even some of our own palace staff. The prince has been buying protection for his operation." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. If Prince Alexander had corrupted people within the palace, it meant the royal family itself might be compromised. Who else knew about these crimes? Who else was being paid to look the other way? "Give me a secure line to the king immediately," Marcus ordered. "He needs to know how deep this corruption goes." While Chin worked to establish communication with the palace, Marcus continued examining the evidence. He found shipping records showing that Prince Alexander's operation had moved over 1,000 people in the past 2 years. The destinations were all over the world: wealthy buyers in Asia, the Middle East, and South America who paid enormous sums for human slaves. But the most shocking discovery came when Lieutenant Kim called from the prince's bedroom. "Captain, you need to see this right now." Marcus rushed to the bedroom and found Kim standing in front of an open wall safe. Inside were not just stacks of cash and gold bars, but also video recordings labeled with dates going back 5 years. "I'll play one of them, sir," Kim said, her face pale. "They're recordings of the prince's meetings with buyers. He's been documenting everything, probably as insurance against his business partners." Marcus inserted one of the video discs into a player and watched in disbelief as Prince Alexander appeared on screen, sitting in this very apartment, negotiating the sale of a family of refugees to a wealthy businessman from Dubai. The prince spoke casually about his products, as if discussing cattle or furniture. "Turn it off," Marcus said, feeling sick. "We've seen enough." As his team continued processing the scene, Marcus received word that Sergeant Chun had established contact with the palace. King Edward's voice came through the secure radio, strained with emotion. "Captain Steele, what have you found?" Marcus took a deep breath before responding. "Your Majesty, it's worse than we imagined. Prince Alexander has been running a global human trafficking network. We have evidence of over 1,000 victims and financial records showing corruption within our own government." There was a long pause before the king responded. "How many of our people are involved?" "We're still analyzing the documents, but preliminary evidence suggests at least 20 palace staff members and several high-ranking officials have been receiving payments." "Your Majesty, this conspiracy goes all the way to the top levels of government." Another pause, longer this time. Marcus could hear Queen Isabella crying in the background. "Captain, I want you to arrest everyone on those lists immediately. No exceptions, regardless of rank or position. The integrity of the crown depends on it." "Understood, Your Majesty." "But, sir, there's something else. We found evidence that Prince Alexander was planning to use his criminal profits to fund a coup against you. He has detailed plans for assassinating you and Queen Isabella and taking the throne." The radio crackled with static before the king's voice returned, harder and colder than Marcus had ever heard it. "Then, my brother's not just a criminal. He's a traitor who planned to murder his own family. Show him no mercy, Captain." As Marcus finished his conversation with the king, Prince Alexander began to regain consciousness. The prince's eyes fluttered open, and he looked around the destroyed apartment with a mixture of anger and defeat. "You have no idea what you've done," Prince Alexander said weakly as Lieutenant Kim helped him sit up. "The people I work with don't forgive betrayal. You've signed death warrants for everyone in the royal family." Marcus knelt down beside the prince, his face inches from his former heroes. "The only betrayal here is yours. You betrayed your family, your country, and hundreds of innocent people who trusted you." Prince Alexander laughed bitterly. "Innocent people? Captain, you're more naive than I thought. Do you really believe those refugees and street people I sold had any value to society? I was cleaning up the city while making a profit." The callousness of the statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. This man who had once seemed so noble and caring was revealed as a monster who saw human beings as disposable commodities. "You're going to tell us about every victim, every buyer, and every co-conspirator," Marcus said firmly. and you're going to help us shut down your entire network. I'll tell you nothing, Prince Alexander spat. And even if you arrest me, this operation is too big to stop. I have partners around the world who will continue the work. Lieutenant Kim approached with a tablet showing the live video feeds from the warehouses. Sir, we're watching people being loaded into shipping containers right now. If we don't act immediately, dozens more victims will disappear forever. Marcus realized they were fighting against time. Every minute they delayed meant more innocent people would be sold into slavery or worse. The evidence in Prince Alexander's apartment was just the beginning. They needed to coordinate with international law enforcement to shut down the entire network. Sergeant Chun, contact Interpol and the FBI immediately, Marcus ordered. Give them everything we've found and request emergency assistance to raid all known locations simultaneously. As his team worked frantically to process evidence and coordinate with international partners, Marcus looked down at Prince Alexander, who had closed his eyes and seemed to be sleeping peacefully despite his handcuffs. The man who had once been beloved by millions as a charitable prince was now exposed as one of the most prolific human traffickers in modern history. But Marcus suspected they had only scratched the surface of his crimes. The real shock was yet to come when they began interrogating the other suspects and analyzing the vast amount of evidence they had seized. The discovery in Prince Alexander's apartment would reveal a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power and threatened the very foundation of the kingdom. Dawn was breaking over the city as Captain Marcus Steele sat in the secure interrogation room deep beneath the palace. Across from him, Prince Alexander sat handcuffed to a steel chair, his royal composure replaced by cold defiance. The past 6 hours had revealed horrors beyond anything Marcus could have imagined. The 5 foreign buyers arrested at the apartment had already begun talking to save themselves. Viktor Petrov, the supposed Russian diplomat, had confessed to purchasing over 200 victims for wealthy clients across Eastern Europe. His testimony alone would shut down trafficking rings in a dozen countries. But it was Prince Alexander's own records that provided the most damning evidence. The meticulous documentation he kept had revealed a network spanning 4 continents, involving government officials, business leaders, and even members of other royal families. Your Highness, Marcus said, placing a thick folder on the table between them. We've spent the night analyzing your files. We know about the operations in Thailand, the warehouse in Mexico City, and the shipping routes through the Mediterranean. We have enough evidence to convict you 1,000 times over. Prince Alexander stared at the wall behind Marcus, refusing to make eye contact. I want to speak with my lawyer. You can speak with a lawyer after you tell us how to find the victims who are still alive, Marcus replied firmly. Right now, there are people locked in containers and warehouses because of your operation. Every minute you waste means someone might die. For the first time since his arrest, Prince Alexander showed emotion. A slight smile crossed his face. You still don't understand, do you, Captain? Those people were already dead. I just made their final months profitable. Marcus felt rage building his chest, but he forced himself to remain professional. What do you mean by that? The refugees, the homeless, the drug addicts, society had already written them off, Prince Alexander said calmly. I simply found a way to extract value from human waste. My buyers provided them with food and shelter, which is more than they had on the streets. Food and shelter? Marcus slammed his hand on the table. You sold them into slavery. We found evidence of torture, forced labor, and murder. Prince Alexander shrugged. Every business has overhead and quality control issues. The important thing is that I removed undesirable elements from our kingdom while generating substantial revenue. Marcus realized he was dealing with a sociopath who felt no remorse for destroying hundreds of lives. The prince's calm discussion of human trafficking as a business venture showed complete disconnection from normal human emotion. A knock on the door interrupted the interrogation. Sergeant Chun entered with urgent news. Sir, we've got a problem. The raids on the other locations have uncovered something unexpected. Marcus stepped outside the interrogation room, leaving Prince Alexander under guard. Chun led him to a secure communications center where multiple screens showed live feed from raid sites around the world. What are we looking at? Marcus asked. The warehouse in Thailand. Chun pointed to one screen. When local police raided it, they found it empty except for these. The camera showed dozens of wooden boxes stacked in a warehouse. Each box contained personal effects, clothing, jewelry, identification papers. Lieutenant Kim approached with a tablet full of analysis results. Sir, we've identified items belonging to victims from 5 years ago. People who were supposed to be shipped to buyers, but apparently never arrived. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying the buyers weren't keeping these people as slaves? Kim confirmed. They were killing them. This entire operation was never about human trafficking for labor. It was about selling people to wealthy psychopaths who wanted to hunt and kill human beings for entertainment. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had assumed Prince Alexander was running a traditional trafficking operation where victims were forced into labor or prostitution. The reality was far worse. He was supplying human prey to the world's most twisted wealthy elite. How many? Marcus asked quietly. Shun consulted his notes. Based on the personal effects we've found so far, at least 800 people were sold and murdered over the past 5 years. And there are more sites we haven't raided yet. Marcus returned to the interrogation room with this new knowledge burning in his mind. Prince Alexander looked up as he entered, and Marcus saw satisfaction in the prince's eyes. You know, don't you? Prince Alexander said. You figured out what my real business was. You were selling people to be murdered for sport. Marcus said, his voice deadly quiet. I was providing a very exclusive service to very wealthy clients. Prince Alexander corrected. Do you have any idea how much a billionaire will pay for the ultimate hunting experience? We're talking about men who own countries, Captain. Men for whom money has no meaning except as a way to purchase new experiences. Marcus sat down heavily, overwhelmed by the scope of the horror. How could you do this to innocent people? Innocent? Prince Alexander laughed. Most of my products were criminals, drug addicts, and illegal immigrants. People's society wanted to disappear anyway. I simply found a way to make their disappearance profitable while providing entertainment for my clients. What about the children? Marcus asked, remembering some of the photographs they had found. There were children in your records. Prince Alexander's expression hardened. Some clients had very specific preferences. Youth was often a premium feature that commanded higher prices. Marcus fought the urge to strike the handcuffed prince. The casual way he discussed selling children to be murdered was beyond comprehension. Who were your buyers? We need names. Names? Prince Alexander smiled coldly. Captain, my client list reads like a who's who of world leaders, technology billionaires, and entertainment moguls. People whose names you see in newspapers every day. Do you really think the royal family wants that information to become public? Marcus realized Prince Alexander was threatening to expose his clients if the royal family pursued prosecution. The scandal would destroy not just the monarchy, but could destabilize governments around the world. You're saying you'll stay quiet about your buyers if we make a deal? Marcus asked. I'm saying that pursuing this case fully will reveal truths that powerful people don't want revealed, Prince Alexander replied. My operation existed because it served the needs of people who control governments, media companies, and law enforcement agencies. They will protect themselves. Before Marcus could respond, an urgent alarm began sounding throughout the palace. His radio crackled with an emergency message from palace security. All units, we have multiple helicopters approaching the palace. They appear to be military aircraft from unknown sources. This is not a drill. Marcus grabbed his radio. Control, this is Captain Steele. Are these aircraft responding to our operation against Prince Alexander? Negative, Captain. These aircraft are not from our military. They're flying in attack formation and ignoring our communications. Through the interrogation room's small window, Marcus could see black helicopters circling the palace like vultures. Prince Alexander watched the aircraft with satisfaction. I told you that my clients don't forgive betrayal, Prince Alexander said calmly. They're coming to clean up loose ends. Marcus realized the full scope of what they faced. Prince Alexander's criminal network wasn't just about trafficking and murder. It involved people with enough power to launch military attacks on sovereign nations. Who are they? Marcus demanded. Private military contractors funded by my clients, Prince Alexander explained. Men who have killed world leaders, toppled governments, and started wars to protect their employers' interests. Did you really think you could arrest me without consequences? The sound of gunfire erupted from outside as the palace guard engaged the attacking helicopters. Marcus's radio filled with urgent reports of armed men rappelling onto the palace grounds. Sir, came Chin's voice over the radio. We're under attack by professional soldiers. They're moving toward the detention center. I think they're coming for Prince Alexander. Marcus faced an impossible choice. He could try to evacuate Prince Alexander to a more secure location, risking the lives of his men in a running battle with superior forces. Or he could use the prince as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the attackers. "Captain," Prince Alexander said, reading Marcus's thoughts, "you have about 10 minutes before my friends reach this room. I suggest you consider your options carefully." "What do you want?" Marcus asked. "My freedom, all evidence destroyed, and a guarantee that this investigation ends here," Prince Alexander replied. "In exchange, I'll call off the attack and ensure your royal family remains safe." The gunfire intensified outside as Marcus weighed his options. Through his earpiece, he could hear his men crying out for reinforcements as they fell back toward the palace's inner defenses. "If I agree to your terms," Marcus said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that you'll honor the deal?" Prince Alexander smiled coldly. "Captain, you don't have any guarantees. But you do have a choice. Let me go and save your men's lives or watch them die defending a palace that's about to be overrun by soldiers who make your guard look like children playing with toy guns." Marcus looked out the window again and saw explosions lighting up the palace grounds. The attackers were using military-grade weapons against his men, who were trained for ceremony and basic security, not warfare against professional mercenaries. His radio crackled with a final, desperate message from Sergeant Chun. "Captain, they've breached the outer defenses. We can't hold them much longer. Request immediate orders." Marcus knew that in the next few minutes, he would make a decision that would define the rest of his life and determine the fate of the kingdom. Prince Alexander sat waiting patiently, knowing that with each passing second, Marcus had fewer choices available. The Royal Guard's greatest victory was about to become their most devastating defeat. Captain Marcus Steele stood frozen in the interrogation room as explosions shook the palace foundations. Through his earpiece, he could hear his men fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. The professional mercenaries attacking the palace were systematically destroying the Royal Guard's defenses. Prince Alexander sat calmly in his chair, watching Marcus's internal struggle with satisfaction. "Time is running out, Captain. My associates are very efficient. Once they reach this room, they won't be interested in negotiations." Marcus's radio crackled with urgent updates from the battle above. "Captain Steele, this is Lieutenant Park in the East Wing. We're being overrun. These aren't ordinary soldiers. They're using advanced weaponry and tactical equipment. We need immediate evacuation orders." The weight of command pressed down on Marcus like a crushing stone. Every decision he made in the next few minutes would determine whether his men lived or died. But giving in to Prince Alexander's demands would mean letting a mass murderer escape justice. "There's a third option," Marcus said suddenly, an idea forming in his mind. Prince Alexander raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Marcus pulled out his secure satellite phone and began dialing. "I'm calling the international media, every news network in the world. If your clients want to attack a royal palace, they can do it on live television." Prince Alexander's composure cracked for the first time. "You wouldn't dare? The scandal would destroy the monarchy." "The monarchy is already destroyed," Marcus replied as the phone connected. "But at least the world will know the truth about what you've done." Within minutes, Marcus had contacted news networks across the globe, providing them with the evidence of Prince Alexander's crimes and alerting them to the current attack on the palace. He knew that once the story broke internationally, Prince Alexander's powerful clients would be exposed to public scrutiny. CNN International. "This is Captain Marcus Steele of the Royal Guard. I'm transmitting evidence of an international conspiracy involving human trafficking, murder for sport, and the participation of world leaders and billionaires. We are currently under attack by private military forces attempting to cover up these crimes." Prince Alexander listened in growing alarm as Marcus methodically contacted one news organization after another, uploading files and providing detailed testimony. The prince's greatest weapon, secrecy, was being systematically destroyed. "You fool," Prince Alexander snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've done? These people will hunt down everyone connected to this story. They have unlimited resources and no conscience." Marcus finished his final call and put away the phone. "Then, we'll face them in the light instead of hiding in darkness. The world deserves to know what monsters walk among them." Explosions continued to rock the palace as the attacking forces pushed deeper into the building. But Marcus noticed something changing in the pattern of gunfire. His radio crackled with a new voice. "Royal Guard, this is Colonel Harrison, British Special Forces. We are engaging hostile aircraft in your airspace. Hold your positions. Help is en route. Through the small window, Marcus could see military jets streaking across the sky, engaging Prince Alexander's helicopters in aerial combat. The international community was responding to his emergency broadcasts faster than he had dared hope. Prince Alexander's face went pale as he realized his rescue was being intercepted. This isn't possible. My clients control military assets in dozens of countries. Your clients control corrupt individuals within those countries, Marcus corrected. But when their crimes become public, even bot politicians have to choose between protecting murderers and protecting their own careers. More radio traffic filled the airways as international law enforcement agencies coordinated their response. Captain Steele, this is FBI Director Michelle Torres. We're mobilizing task forces to raid all locations identified in your evidence packages. Interpol is coordinating similar operations worldwide. The tide of battle was turning. The mercenary force attacking the palace found themselves surrounded by responding military units from multiple nations. What had begun as a rescue mission for Prince Alexander had become a trap that would expose his entire network. "Sir," came Sergeant Chin's voice over the radio, relief evident in his tone. "The hostiles are withdrawing. International forces have them surrounded and outgunned." But Marcus knew the real battle was just beginning. Over the next several hours, as news of Prince Alexander's crimes spread worldwide, the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. The evidence seized from his apartment led to arrests on every continent. Technology billionaire James Mitchell was arrested at his Silicon Valley mansion as police found evidence of dozens of victims killed on his private island. Media mogul Sir Richard Blackwood was taken into custody in London after investigators discovered he had been funding trafficking operations across Africa. The revelation that shook the world most deeply came when investigators uncovered evidence that Prince Alexander had been selling victims to members of other royal families. The scandal triggered constitutional crises in multiple monarchies as their complicity was exposed. King Edward addressed the nation that evening, his face aged years in a single day. "My fellow citizens, today we learned that evil can hide behind any face, even those we trust most. My brother has betrayed everything our family represents, and justice will be served regardless of his bloodline." Queen Isabella appeared beside him, her eyes red from crying, but her voice steady. "We pledge to you that every victim will be honored, every survivor will receive support, and every perpetrator will face consequences. The crown serves justice, not the other way around." In the days that followed, as international investigations unraveled the full network, Marcus found himself testifying before courts around the world. The evidence from Prince Alexander's apartment had provided the key to dismantling what prosecutors called the largest organized crime conspiracy in modern history. The final tally was staggering. Over 1,200 confirmed victims, clients in 47 countries, and corruption reaching the highest levels of governments worldwide. Prince Alexander's meticulous record-keeping had inadvertently created the evidence trail that destroyed his entire network. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same throne room where this nightmare had begun. King Edward approached him with a small wooden box. "Captain Steele, for extraordinary service to the crown and to humanity, I present you with the Order of the Golden Lion, the highest honor our kingdom can bestow." As Marcus knelt to receive the medal, he thought about the hundreds of victims whose names he had learned during the investigation. People like Sarah Chun, a refugee who had been sold to hunters in Cambodia. Miguel Santos, a homeless veteran who had trusted Prince Alexander's promises of help. Lisa Park, a runaway teenager whose disappearance had gone unnoticed until her name appeared in the prince's files. "Your Majesty," Marcus said as he stood, "this honor belongs to every victim who suffered and every survivor who found the courage to testify. They're the real heroes of this story." King Edward nodded solemnly. "Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. We've established the Alexander Memorial Foundation to support survivors of trafficking worldwide. It will be funded entirely by assets seized from my brother and his network." The trial of Prince Alexander began 6 months later in The Hague, as an international tribunal had jurisdiction over crimes spanning multiple continents. Marcus testified for 3 days, walking the court through every detail of the investigation and the evidence they had uncovered. Prince Alexander, dressed in a simple prison uniform instead of royal regalia, showed no remorse as victim after victim testified about their experiences. When given the chance to address the court before sentencing, he spoke for less than a minute. "I regret only that I was caught," he said coldly. "The weak exist to serve the strong. That is the natural order of things." The chief judge, her voice heavy with disgust, delivered the verdict. "In 60 years of practicing law, I have never encountered such callous disregard for human life. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, to be served in solitary confinement." As Prince Alexander was led away in shackles, Marcus felt no satisfaction in seeing justice served. Too many people had died, too many families had been destroyed. Victory felt hollow when measured against such enormous loss. But in the months that followed, as rescue operations freed survivors from hidden prisons around the world, Marcus began to see the true meaning of their mission. The night they stormed Prince Alexander's apartment had been the beginning, not the end, of saving lives. Elena Vasquez, a trafficking survivor who had been rescued from a compound in Mexico, spoke at a memorial service for the victims. "Every person saved is a victory against evil," she said. "Every truth revealed is hope for the future." Marcus thought about her words as he walked through the palace gardens that evening. The scandal had changed the monarchy forever, forcing it to become more transparent and accountable to the people. The royal family's willingness to pursue justice against one of their own had ultimately strengthened public trust. The investigation also led to international reforms in how law enforcement agencies cooperated across borders. The Prince Alexander case became a model for dismantling transnational crime networks, saving countless future victims. Years later, when young guards asked Marcus about that night, he would always return to the same lesson. Evil often hides behind respectable faces and noble titles. Our job isn't to protect power, it's to protect people from those who would abuse power. The Royal Guard's raid on Prince Alexander's apartment had uncovered more than just evidence of crimes. It had revealed the courage ordinary people could show when fighting extraordinary evil. In the end, that courage had proven stronger than money, influence, or even royal blood. The discovery inside the apartment had indeed been scandalous, but it was the response to that scandal that would define the kingdom's character for generations to come. Truth, justice, and human dignity had prevailed over corruption, cruelty, and conspiracy. Marcus kept a small photograph on his desk, a group picture of the survivors who had testified at the trial. Their faces showed pain, but also strength and hope. Every morning when he looked at that picture, he remembered why the Royal Guard existed: to serve and protect all people, regardless of who threatened them. The kingdom emerged from the crisis forever changed, but ultimately stronger, having proven that no one, not even royalty, was above the law or beyond the reach of justice.